And thank you for tuning in. It's Thursday night and it's stormy here on the Eastern Shore on Delmarva. That's Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia. And we're surrounded by water. But nonetheless, we've survived the thunderstorm. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends, Romans, and countrymen, lend me both of your ears one more time. Let's see what we got going on here. There's Mrs. Espinlab. She said hi, and hopefully there'll be some other people come in here. Thank you for tuning in, whether you're down the street, around the corner, across America, or somewhere around this great big world. Thank you. And we ask you to share this out with everybody and everyone, near, far, and wide. And there's Cassandra from way down there in Arkansas. It's good to see you, Cassandra. And it's good to have everybody. Tonight, of course, there he is, my friend, your friend, Mr. Ed Temple. Ed, it's good to have you, buddy.
Well, it's about time you're glad to have me. I appreciate it, though, George.
Oh, my. Ed needs tender love and care. That's what he needs. And
don't get enough hugs.
No, you don't get enough hugs. So everybody give him a virtual hug tonight. There's Jamie. Good to have you, Jamie. So everybody give Ed a great big virtual hug tonight. Maybe that'll lift him up in his spirits. I don't know. I sometimes wonder. There's Scott. So they're drifting in. Let me put this up, lest I forget. We're going to be giving away some books tonight. So you that have been here before, just put in the comment section #book. And for you that are new, we welcome you. And to be eligible for the drawing, put in the comment section #book. And we've got the gizmo running in the background. So we're up and ready to go. You must have a continental U.S. address. So you've got to be here within the continental USA in order to be eligible for this. So it's #book. And we're going to do a couple drawings, and we'll see who the lucky people are. Let me see what we got here. I won't put that up, Ed, because let's see who else we got. Okay. All righty. With no further ado, as my sidekick Charlie on the radio show always says, let's bring up our guest tonight, Joseph M. Lenard. Did I say that right?
Lenard.
Leonard.
No O in it, right? Yeah.
Leonard.
And I'm glad you included the middle initial, Joseph M. Leonard, because I'm in Michigan, and there's another Joseph Leonard out of North Carolina that writes books. So we
got the wrong guy. Wait, Joe, we got to do another show.
Yeah. Have both of us on at the same time. That would really be interesting.
That would be interesting. Yes, it would. So,
we can have an argument who's the better Joseph Leonard.
Oh, you guys argue that. I don't want no part of that one.
Got to keep a sense of humor these days, even despite how serious things are and how serious my book is. There's some humor in my book, too, because of that. If you don't laugh on occasion, you'll be crying all the time.
That's right. Laughter is good medicine for the soul. Everybody.
Yep, I even mentioned that about Patch Adams and laughter as medicine in the book.
Everybody do what Sue Branch has just done. #book to be eligible for the book. And we'll get into that in a little bit here.
Love the kitty there, Sue. Love the kitty. Give him a hug for me.
Joseph, you're in Michigan territory. You're out there close to Detroit?
Yeah, I'm actually what's called the downriver communities. I'm in Wyandotte, Michigan, Indian tribe name, southern suburb of Detroit. Yes,
Okay. Uh,
which is kind of where my book takes place. My main lead, Martin, Marten, is a Detroit newspaper man who is going to write a book about terrorism himself. So that's just uh, kind of, I'm not the first person to use a book within a book kind of a theme, but it's a nice, easy way of leading someone through a story.
right. Before we get right to the book, give us a quick or a quick synopsis of your life, where you grew up at, and what you did, and how you came about writing this book.
Yeah, I born and raised in Wyandotte. Well, actually, the next city over the hospital was, but I've lived in Wyandotte all my life. And despite the Michigan winters, and Ed could probably attest to the Ohio winters, I I decided to stay here for family and all that. The summers are great. It's just the winters are brutal. And I played hockey while I was growing up. I was a musician for a while, but that was back before the days of the internet when you could, put up a website and put your music online and sell directly to people. And I wasn't good enough to get a record deal. So I moved on to short stories and novels. I spent most of my career in information technology. Uh, and this was just the first book that I felt really had substantive enough heft to it and was at the right time for this subject matter that I had to release this book because despite the Wuhan virus hysteria, some people seem to think that terrorism went away, which is a myth. It's wrong. It's just that most of the mainstream media handpicks particular news items of hysteria to peddle, and they don't report all of the news as they should.
Ed?
Yeah, I mean, despite being from Michigan, I appreciate the book. But to be clear,
Says the guy whose team is named after a nut.
I've been called worse. But yeah, as George would tell you, one of my I've written 5 poems. It's called the Last Terrorist. And what we're starting to see, in case you haven't been paying attention, people that are listening, is just recently the media has been using the terms Christian nationalist, and obviously we're seeing who the new targets are as far as the end of Western civilization. And you guys have been kind of pre-planning it. If all you have is listen to what they've been saying and connect a few dots here and there, and not be too distracted from everything else that's out there. But in terms of all these types of things, why are people like us censored so much?
Yeah, well, that's certainly a good question. And about what you just mentioned, people aren't aware of this because, again, the news handpicks only the things that fit their political narratives. There have been now over 205 mass shootings in the United States this year alone. You've heard about what? Buffalo? Buffalo was not a white Christian nationalist. You've maybe briefly heard about Waukesha, Wisconsin at the Christmas parade at the end of last year, where a jihadist, and he was a jihadist, ran down people during the Christmas parade. That was not a white Christian nationalist, but that is not to say that all terrorists are one type or another. I don't doubt that there probably are maybe a handful of white Christian nationalist groups, but I'd like somebody to show them to me. but we know of a whole lot more of other jihadi groups, and I call them GIJIA. I've entered that new term into the nomenclature. Stands for Global Islamic Jihadist Interim Army, because it's a lot easier to say GIJIA than Islamic fundamentalist radicals all the time, like we called the Nazis during World War II, which was actually coined by Goebbels. Goebbels coined the Nazi Soci for National Socialist, Deutschland Arbeiterparty, and we adopted the name Nazi to call them. So I introduced GIJIA. But yeah, we just had a shooting in Tulsa, which I coincidentally have a chapter in my book on Tulsa, Oklahoma, but it doesn't have to do with a mass shooting. And that's one of the things I've left out of my book, was a mass shootings chapter, which now in retrospect was a bad idea, because we've had a whole lot of rash of that happening right now. Like I said, 205 already this year alone. I also left out a terrorist havens chapter that would have delved into all the groups, even including a Christian white nationalist group, if I could have found one, to highlight in the book, but I never found any. So you'd know the names of the groups, where they're based, who's funding them. I also left out, I'm a former IT guy, I mentioned primarily. I left out regarding cyber terrorism because I didn't want to create a whole new War and Peace length novel. I didn't want 500 pages, because times are tough right now. Inflation is ridiculous. So I wanted a book that came in under $20 or right at $20 to, be sound on people's budgets. But I do include a chapter in the front called Introduction, where I provide some additional links and other things that were left out of the book. So kind of a story behind things that got left out to try to save you money, and additional links, kind of like when you get a DVD for a movie nowadays, you get add-ons, behind the scenes, cut scenes, alternate endings. So I include that in my book to give you more value for your money than just the book. And so, you have to pick and choose what you put in and leave out. And one thing I left out too, I was going to be cute and clever, although I know I know you're going to put up my phone number later. I was going to bury my phone number encoded in the book, in the chapters. I was going to do a cute little thing so that you'd have a secret puzzle that on a show like today, I would tell you it's buried in there. You could find my home phone number, and there'd be hints on the various pages that make up the area codes, prefix, and suffix. But I landed up cutting that too for time, because my deadline was getting too near. And every time you add a sentence or a paragraph, it shifts everything around. I had to keep moving the codes. So I wanted to, to give the more cerebral of us a Easter egg thing like that, like sometimes are hidden in movies on DVDs. But I ended up cutting that.
So your book is this is an Espinlab term. Your book is a fiction factual book.
They technically call it historical fiction, but yeah, I call it faction. Part fact, part fiction. Again, my lead, Martin, goes through research about writing a book about terrorism. And that's how I lead the reader through time to some terrorist attacks, terrorist events, and they're not all Islamics. They're not all GIJIA, because, again, terrorism crosses a bunch of boundaries, every color, every gender, all that stuff. So I'm not trying to pigeonhole strictly GIJIA terrorism, but it is the primary focus because it is still our primary concern right now. And I lost my train of thought. But
thought,
yeah,
Joe,
yeah,
what kind of what is the craziest feedback you've heard from those that have read the book or have heard about the book?
well, I I don't know about well, the things I get from people who know me are, one, that I left out anything regarding cyber terrorism, since I was primarily an IT guy most of my life. The other feedback I usually get is I was expecting the book to open with 9/11 and then go from there, and it doesn't. And I'll share a negative review because they're inevitable. It's a matter of life. Not everybody's going to love this book. Not everybody's going to get it. There's a lot of sub themes in this book, a lot of different chapters, a lot of sub themes that relate loosely with one another. And somebody from Australia clearly didn't quite get it. And she said she didn't quite see the story she was expecting. Well, I sat down to write a particular story, and it is mostly US centric. So I guess she didn't get quite how to connect all the dots about all those who hate America, including in the book American fascocrats, as I call them, who also hate our own country. Mm-hmm. And one of the quotes from the book is Martin fails to understand how so many people can hate the very nation that provided them everything. So I just don't think she quite understood American politics enough to understand how all those dots connected. But it is an international book. There is a chapter on Toronto, Ontario, Canada, London, England, Madrid, Spain, and Tokyo, Japan. Because again, with Tokyo, it was an Aim Shrenko terrorist religious cult. So I guess there's their Christian nationalists, although I don't know if you consider Asian people white, right? That could be defined loosely as that engaged in terrorism in Japan. And they have, or they used to have, offices all across the globe. So they were a threat as a national terrorist organization at that time. So I put that in there to drive home the point. Not all terrorists are Islamic. Not all Muslims are terrorists. Not all Muslims are Arab. And not all Arabs are Muslim or terrorists. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You have been so gracious, and I wrote some of these things down, and you've answered a couple of them. But some things that you've never discussed with any other host before.
Yeah, one of them was some of the additional chapters that I left out I hadn't mentioned. But one other thing was the time in general. We kind of mentioned time, and you could see, let me move aside. There's my part of my book cover, and you could see predominantly a clock, right? Mm-hmm. 2 minutes to midnight, the doomsday clock. Time is running out. The end is near. Coming soon to a city near you is the subtitle. The full book title is Terror Strikes, Coming Soon to a City Near You. And part of the point is it can happen anywhere. It doesn't matter how remote and rural you think you are. It can still come your way. And let me tie that back to the Tulsa chapter. You want to pay close attention to the Tulsa chapter to understand where that it can happen at any time. As to Shad's comment, when will the next 9/11 occur? We spend so much time trying to intercede, and there are plenty of events from contacts that I know that helped me write this book, of events you will never know happened, and I don't go into because I don't want to expose sources. But a 9/11 could happen at any time. And 9/11 wasn't the first airline attack. Project Bojinko, which I go into in the book. But as so far as time, the hardest thing, this I never discussed with anybody, is time passage. How do you cover that in a book or even a movie? Sometimes, they have a montage scene or whatever to try to show time passage. Well, my next book, which isn't a direct sequel, but it will be plucking a character from this book to be my next book. And that book, the easiest way to show passage of time is to literally make each chapter name a date. And I plan on doing that in my next book, and it'll be chronological. But I wanted to obscure time in this book intentionally. The exact dates of particular events are almost not as important as the point of that they can occur again. So I mix around the dates and times. I mean, I put the real date and time in on the factual things, but I mean, it is not chronological in the book, so that the reader, when they're reading the fictional parts, can get the feeling that it's happening today and could be happening right around the corner from them. And another quote from the book, and you could go to terrorstrikes.info/quotes to see some of these, is Teresa thought she was a protector for her child, but she discovers she's more of an ostrich than the mama bear she needed to be. And that's in the Naperville chapter. You have to live your life. I like to say this about the book, despite the title and the main theme, and again, there's a bunch of sub-themes like PTSD, our first responders and our veterans suffering it from the war on terror, suicide prevention, because that's an issue with our vets and our first responders, comic relief that I mentioned, a whole lot of other sub-themes, and connecting the dots. Even U.S. people who hate our own country, those dots all get connected in one way that our friend in Australia didn't quite get, unfortunately. So I obscure the time to try to mix it up so purposefully, so that the fictional portions, especially the endings chapters, you get the feel for they're happening now rather than a set time. And then, 2 years from now, the book is kind of spoiled because it says it happened 2 years ago.
Tell me why Google has censored you and your book.
I wish that I was going to say I wish I knew the answer to that, but I know the answer to that. I am a conservative, constitutionalist, political activist in Michigan. I have been since 1978. Google does not like my content. My articles, my blogs, my vlogs on YouTube have all been censored. You won't get search results in Google for my book. They have censored my book. You won't find my book in Google. But I will say this, because I briefly mentioned about the Wuhan virus, and terrorism is here. You just haven't heard about a lot of the events. Go to google.com/alerts. And other than that, I use DuckDuckGo and Jibberoo. But Google is good for this. Google.com/alerts, and set up a alert, a daily digest of terror strikes, my primary book name. So you then get a daily reminder. This is, again, not a ploy to get an advertisement for my book in your inbox, because you won't see anything about my book or my writings in these alerts because I'm censored. But you will see some terrorist events that you are completely unaware of, but you still won't see them all, because Google still censors a lot of those events too, if they don't fit the left-wing political narratives.
Mm-hmm. Ed?
Yeah. So what I noticed about the book, it is historically accurate. Math, you talked about in the book, you talked about your passion for math. And I I figured that was an interesting thing for somebody writing a book to say. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, that's one of the quirky little things I said about myself in the intro. Exactly. It was some people that knew my propensity for math and information technology might find it funny that I write, but like I said, I was a musician. I wrote and recorded music. I've written and written several short stories and a couple other novels. So I've always been involved in writing. But some people who know me, and I joked with the people who don't know me, yeah, my propensity for love of math might make it seem a little strange that I'm writing a book. But yet here it is.
Well, what about, I saw Nostradamus was in your book quite a bit. Why is that?
Well, because of the controversial ties to a 9/11 reference, or whether it really was or not a 9/11 reference. And then also, it's important for those who understand prophets and world events now, because our biggest threat and concern ultimately is Iran and nukes. And Nostradamus talked about two great rocks colliding, and Arethusa. What is Arethusa? Who was she? Why does it matter? Well, if Nostradamus really was a prophet and really understood a lot of the things we think he saw, and I mean, his World War II prophecies are really, really hard to, say weren't spot on. But Arethusa was the goddess of the Mediterranean, and she disappeared into the Mediterranean and supposedly later came back as a spring in Italy. Well, the key fact here, and also Arethusa, Arethhusa, that's a clue. Arethusa, USA, didn't exist in the time of Nostradamus, but yet he picked her with USA in it and the Mediterranean. Well, you might say Iran doesn't touch the Mediterranean, but, and this is some of the, thinking stuff that's in the book, the deep thought stuff that's in the book. Iran, as the Islamic Republic it used to be, was on the shores of Mediterranean Sea. And of course, what is one of their stated goals? To basically nuke Israel off the face of the map, right, and return the Persian Empire from the Mediterranean westward. There's your tie to the Mediterranean, Arethusa, and the USA. And to mention 9/11 again, does that mean a nuclear strike on DC or New York? And I think it does. And that is what I think is our greatest concern and fear. And if this current administration doesn't authorize strikes on Iran to terminate its nuke program permanently, instead of helping our enemy like we did during Obama, and Biden seems hell-bent on doing again, giving them more money, speeding up their nuclear program, helping them fund more terrorism, they will get nukes, and their first target will be Israel, but their second target, because they call Israel the little Satan, they call us the big Satan. The second target will be the U.S., and you don't need a missile, my friends. You can put a nuke on a cargo ship, park it off the edge of Israel in the Mediterranean, park one off the coast of D.C. near the Potomac, park one off the coast of New York, and detonate all three at the same time.
Shad asked this question. Shad, maybe I could shed some light on that. Iran right now, and I study on Israel. Iran right now is only days and weeks of crossing that nuclear threshold.
We fear, anyway. Yes,
Yes,
I,
there
the inside information says that's true.
it the Mossad has recently struck several Iranian nuclear plants, took out some engineers, uh, had some drone strikes and some other things. It's a constant thing. Israel is always flying sorties into Syria. They took out a high ranking colonel in the Republican Guard here a week or so ago. Maybe it was less than a week. They assassinated him while he was sitting in his automobile uh, right there in Tehran. Uh, and they've taken out some of their top nuclear scientists. Uh, so that's why they haven't. But once they have that uranium enriched, they take that 60% uranium and they enrich it up to 90%. Then it's just a matter of finding a vehicle for it to go on to reach wherever they want to. But once they cross that threshold, they can make some ugly, I call them ugly nukes. It don't
Dirty
have,
bombs.
yeah, it don't have to be on a pretty shiny
Yep.
missile or an ICBM.
Like I said, they could put them on a cargo ship and park them off the coast, detonate them all at the same time. And Shad, yeah, you put that up. EMP would be better. Yeah, EMP is also a major threat, especially here in the U.S. Could you imagine if our grids went down for a month or two and couldn't be recovered? But I don't think Iran is sophisticated enough for that. And I think they seem hell-bent on nuclear weapons. And here's why. It's part of their faith. It's part of the Shia faith to rein in Armageddon, to bring forth the Mahdi. And that's touched on in the book. They are a religious cult. They are religious fanatics. Not all Iranians. Let me be clear on that too. Because I don't want somebody saying I think all Iranians are evil and all should be killed. That's not at all what I'm saying. I think most Iranians, if given the chance, would overthrow their government. And we saw that during the Obama years. Remember the Green Revolution? But Obama helped the mullahs put down the Green Revolutions. A few quick strikes on radar installations and Republican Guard installations in Iran, and that government would have been overthrown by its people. No boots on the ground from us, just air support. But we don't do those things. We seem to do the dumbest of things. But yeah, an EMP would definitely be a major thing. And then, of course, there's China. I've not discussed this with anybody else either. China is, of course, a major threat. And now that Biden bumbled out of Afghanistan and Ukraine is such a mess, China may be emboldened to go into Taiwan, which we have made a greater promise to defend than we certainly ever did Ukraine. So that's an issue. And in the atrocity chapter, I mentioned China and the Uyghurs. It's amazing how people in this country go on and on about reparations, about slavery, but they don't say a thing about the slave Uyghurs in China, nor the millions still held as slaves on the African continent today. And, I saw the Top Gun movie 3 times already. And I think everybody should understand that movie centered around Iran, the Iranian threat. And, Tom Cruise had his first $158 million opening weekend, the most he's ever made for an opening movie, which is hard to believe with the original Top Gun adjusted for inflation and his Mission Impossible movies. But the reason I mention that is because people are tired of all the woke garbage, including all the Marvel movies that have a bunch of woke garbage in them, including the multiverse one that's out now. I don't want to give too many spoilers, but America Ferraro is the primary character introduced, which hints at the immigrant, the illegal immigration issue, and she's wearing a LGBTQ pin. And then, of course, there's a flashback memory scene of her and her two mommies, which, of course, couldn't have produced a child by themselves. But they're tired of all this woke crap, and Top Gun focuses on pro-America, morals, honesty, honor, integrity, the same things my book touch upon.
You said that you took the creative writing classes formula guidelines
and put them through the shredder. Yes. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you. Yeah, I have mentioned this on one other show, but I normally don't bring that up. But yes, I briefly said before that this is a book like no other. Like I said, the time sequences aren't chronological, and that's by choice. I know that may confuse some people, but it's that way for a purpose. And there's a bunch of little hidden things like I was going to do with my phone number in there that left out. But yeah, I've been writing my whole life, and I have taken those creative writing courses, and 99.9% of any book you buy follows a formula. You start this way, you do this, you put that twist in, there's got to be a romantic, and this, that, the other thing, yada, yada, yada. The formula to sucker people into buying the same basic book over and over and over again. I took the formulaic writing guidelines and ran them through my shredder before I wrote one word of this book, to make sure it's like no other book you have ever read and will likely ever read again, except for maybe my next one.
We're gonna have our first drawing here in
Oh yeah, we got to do that. I forgot we were going to do that.
Yeah, in just a minute here. I've got the gizmo up here now. Hurry up if you haven't put in the comment box down there. #book. It's floating across the bottom of the screen there. #book to be eligible for the drawing, and you must have a U.S. continental address. So hurry up and get that in there, and we'll do this first spin with the gizmo. I've got it where it's collecting, and we will.
Forgive me for looking down, but as soon as that name pops up, I want to make sure I write it down. So
yeah, and whoever wins, let me put Joseph's email up here, so you can.
That's okay. They could go to josephmlenard.us and click the contact tab also, or terrorstrikes.info, click the contact tab. But yeah, there's my email now, jleonard.
So if you're the lucky one to win the book, make sure that you copy that email down.
Yeah, after all of Shad's questions, I'm sure glad he's still interested in getting the book. I hope, Shad, I have not disappointed you so far.
Well, here we go. We're going to do this first gizmo spin. So here we go. Oh, Espinlob.
And it's spinning, right? Here's again where we got to keep our sense of humor, right? Technology is great, but
Well, there's the winner. Chad won that one. And the next time I promise I'll share it the right way. But Chad, you're the winner, so make sure you copy down.
All right. This has got to be fixed.
No, it wasn't fixed, and I'll get
We've
this
talked about Shad a couple times now during the broadcast, and he wins the first one. I think everybody else may file a complaint.
I hope not. But anyhow,
Again, you got to keep a sense of humor, folks.
Chad, you're the winner of that one. So let me go back to this tool here. And let me take this off. And we'll go back. And we'll do another one. And I did the same thing I did the last time.
So Shad wins the second copy.
No.
Again, just
Jamie Folk.
okay.
He won.
I've seen that name in the comments a few times, so I'm writing that down. Pardon me for looking away, but I want to write them down so that when I get the emails, I know who I'm talking to.
I told you that if anybody blows it up, Espinal will blow it up.
Yeah.
If
Well,
anyone wants their
let me also add this while we're doing this. If you don't get one of the free books and you still want an autographed copy, you can, of course, buy one and get one quicker through Books A Million or Barnes and Noble or Amazon. But I know a lot of people like to avoid Amazon. If you go to terrorstrikes.info/buy, you can buy direct an autographed copy. I will personalize it for you and send it. I've got like 40 books on hand. So if you're not a winner, I've got 40 books now. If you buy them right away, I'll get them out right away. If I get more than 40 orders, it may take 3 weeks to get to you because I've got to order some more of my own books myself. But if you don't win, terrorstrikes.info/buy, and you can get an autographed copy too.
Okie dokie. So
we're going to do one more?
We'll do one more. Just give me a little bit of time. Ed, take it away while I'm going.
Yeah, so while he's getting that spinner going, talk. I don't know if you want to spoil the book, but why would you bring up Patch Adams in a book about terrorism?
Again, that's part of the comic relief. There's a chapter called Comic Relief. And I brought up Patch Adams because of that. Martin is contemplating himself whether he should put humor in his book. And he ultimately concludes he should. And yes, Patch Adams is mentioned, and maybe people will remember the Robin Williams movies, Patch, which, again, now Robin Williams recently committed suicide. So, again, another one of the sub-themes is suicide prevention. So those things all tie together. Again, it's one of the myriad of dots. And that's another one of the weird things you ask me, people say. I've got several people said to me, you know what? I started reading it through, and then I discovered I needed to go back and start reading each chapter 3 times to find all the little hidden things in there that they missed when they were reading the chapter the first time. And this is kind of one of those dots issues. Yeah, Patch Adams showed laughter indeed is the best medicine. And also there's a reference to Schrodinger's cat in that chapter. Well, what does Schrodinger's cat theory have to do with this? Well, that theory is that if you have a box with a cat in it, in theory, it could be 2 states at the same time, both alive or dead. And you don't know till you open the box. Well, Patch Adams couldn't scientifically, with the scientific method, prove that laughter helps heal people faster. But we've all come to accept that, treating kids or anybody with laughter at the same time as treating them with message. And that's where the Schrodinger's cat comes in. You can't clone a patient and treat one with just medicine and the other with humor and medicine to prove the theory. But you could maybe conceivably have identical twins have the same disease at the same time and conduct that experiment. But, how realistic of a chance and opportunity is that? We certainly don't want twins getting identical illnesses at the same time, too. So, yeah, that has to do with it. And then I also want to mention one other thing so I don't forget the sub-theme thing. I'm a Christian. I'm an author. That does not de facto make this a Christian book. However, I sat down to write an honest book about terrorism. And you cannot discuss terrorism without religious and political aspects, because it's part and parcel to some of the often bullshit reasons they say they want to kill us, but it's part of the stated reasons. So the Torah, the New Testament, and the Quran are also in there. But terrorists, of course, want to kill Hindus and and all those other religions, but I couldn't put them all in. So there is a little bit about Judaism and Christianity and Islam in the book, because you have to be honest about this subject. And that's,
Joe, who's your target audience?
Yeah, thank you. You led right into the next thing I wanted to say. Having said that, this is an all audiences book. It is for young, middle-aged, old, and if you're middle-aged or older, you have a child or a grandchild in high school, let them read this book after you've read it, because like you said, it's historically accurate in many places. And a lot of kids in the indoctrination factories we pretend to call schools these days do not teach a lot of this stuff, especially the atrocity chapter that the children need to read to get history they don't know. It's also for male and female. I didn't write a shoot 'em up Rambo kind of book, with blood and guts spewing everywhere. So both male and female, and yes, there are only two genders. I'm holding up two fingers, even though my background's obscuring it, will enjoy this book. And let me throw out, even an LGBTQ person should be able to enjoy this book, because there's even a brief section about where does the real hate lie. Are they hated really by Christians? In Muslim countries, they're being stoned to death and thrown from buildings. So where is the real hate? So that's a sub-theme. It's for everybody. It's for the religious and non-religious. Again, I try not to dwell on that too much at any point, to not, drive somebody crazy and think I'm being preachy. So this is not a Christian book per se, though Christianity is part of it in some of the chapters. And my character, Martin, proclaims to be a Christian. And also political and non-political. Again, you have to discuss politics in there, or what's the point? You're not writing an honest book. But again, I didn't want to keep it down in pages. I could have wrote a 500, 700-page book, but I wanted it at $20 to be easy on the reader's pocketbook.
Do you have a digital form or an audio book?
I've talked to the publisher about an audio book, and they've not done any through Illumify Media or McHenry Press. And I want to say a little bit more about McHenry Press, because that's a new subsidiary to Illumify Media. On my book, you now know the answer to a trivia question. What was the first author and first book ever published on McHenry Press? That's me and my book. McHenry Press is a subsidiary of Illumify Media, named McHenry because of Fort McHenry and Francis Scott Key and the Star-Spangled Banner. So it's their new Patriot line of books, more political oriented. But now can you repeat your question? Because I got off on
I was just asking whether you had it on digital or audio.
Yeah. Thank you. We've discussed audiobook, but they insist that, yes, Martin, Martin, is my real middle name, but my character is Marten. We discussed an audiobook, but so few audiobooks are actually sold, and they're usually expensive. But technology is changing that. Now, you have like Siri or Alexa. The technology is better, that the cost has come down. So we may do an audiobook going forward if your sales support the physical book to invest in an audiobook, because the cost has come down where we can do it electronically rather than having to overpay an actor to do it. Right. But my book really is meant to be read in the physical softcover form. And the reason why, and this is another reason why my book is like no other book you've ever read. I'm the first author, at least that me and my publisher knows of, ever to put a blog within a book. Since I'm an IT guy and we're in the internet age, I thought especially younger people under 40 don't know life without the internet. They know what a blog is. So Martin uses an old 2003 blog he wrote about 9/11 as part of his research. He goes through his old blog looking for tidbits for his book. As far as Kindle, though, ebook is exclusive through Amazon, and I hate to do that, but like the publisher said, 80% of all ebooks, 80% of almost all books are sold through Amazon. So it is available on Kindle, and it's available right now at a special 99 cents price as part of a BookBub promotion. But I got to tell you, it is worth the investment for the autographed copy, of course, but nonetheless, the physical book, because there's a letter in there, there's the blog in there. So it's important to see the formatting in the original book form. You can get by on Kindle, but it'll be a little more difficult to read.
All right. Here we go. We're going to go. I got it right this time. 1 out of 3. Man.
Oh, now are we going to do a third book giveaway then, or we don't have time?
No, we've got just about enough time. So Jamie and Chad, you guys are out. You already won your goodies, but
yeah. Oh, and let me throw in one last thing. Since Sue, actually that's Brenda. I know Brenda. Thanks for tuning in, Brenda. Yeah, Martin is my middle name, Martin. My character's Marten, and I've been asked this on other shows. No, that character is not me. There are certainly aspects of me in the book, but the characters are fictional, except for, of course, the actual terrorists that are identified in the factual portions of the book.
So if you want to get a copy of this book and you want the gizmo to spin, hurry up and put in the comment section #show. That's #show. And we'll give you about 30 seconds, and then we'll spin the gizmo, see if we got any more entries in there. But thus far, Chad and Jamie have been the lucky guys.
Yeah, well, Brenda doesn't need one. She already has a copy, but I suppose if she wins, she could give it to somebody.
All right, here we go. We're gonna spin this thing, and this one you'll be able to see. I don't see any entries, but we're gonna spin it anyhow and see what happens. It won't spin with no entries. Okay, that's the problem.
So somebody put show in real quick and you win a book.
Yeah, #show.
First person to put in #show is going to get a book.
If not, oh well. But our time is.
All right, George. Ha ha ha.
Yeah, that was Ed that did that.
Oh.
Yeah, that was Ed.
There we go. Are we going to
Yeah.
give it to Sherry Dean? She put it in.
Yes.
Jerry Dean. All right, here we go. We're gonna draw this. Oh, we got 4 of them now. Well, of course, my name's in there, but here we go. Ed Temple. Ed
E.J.
Temple.
Temple. I didn't even notice that one.
Yeah, give it to Sherry Dean.
Give it to Sherry Dean anyway.
Yeah, I have my copy. Sherry Dean wins.
Okay.
I'll tell
Sherry.
you what, E.J. Temple,
Yep.
send me your info too. Sherry Dean, send me your info. I'll give away 4 books.
That'll work.
That'll work. There you go.
I don't want to short anybody or think this was rigged.
Yeah. And I apologize for not getting the first 2 times right, but I finally got it right.
I'm glad I got to see the gizmo in action. I was curious because I've been on like 50 plus interviews since the book's come out in April, and you're the first on StreamYard to actually use that to be able to help give away a book. So I'm really glad we were able to do that.
There. Do you see Sherry's comment, Ed?
Yeah, I see that.
Okay. All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed this as much as we did, and continue to just share it out, share it out, share it out, and share it out. And I thank you for tuning in.
I want to throw in one last thing. We discussed a few things that I've not discussed with any other interviewer. Now, there are certainly other interviews too, that there are other things we didn't discuss today. So if you go to terrorstrikes.info/interviews, terrorstrikes.info/interviews, there's a few other shows you can watch or listen to hear other things we didn't discuss today.
Okay.
Plus a copy of this show is already up there.
All right, ladies and gentlemen.
J Lenard.
Pardon?
J and then Lenard.
Yes, at terrorstrikes.info. Exactly. Yeah, there's no O in Leonard.
Okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you. Whether you're down the street, around the corner, across America, or somewhere around this great big world, I trust that you'll have a very pleasant evening. If it's daytime already where you're at, have a very pleasant day. Thank you, Joseph. And until next time, God bless you, and we'll see you all later.